This is my journey and summary of learning throughout ECS 210. Before entering university, I had never really been shown or looked through the curriculum much before. I just had this assumption that it was a mandated government document that teachers used to educate their students and help determine whether they move up a grade or not. After the first day of class, I learned that my assumption wasn't far off. But I also learned that teachers don't really have a say in what gets put into the curriculum. This was shocking and concerning for me. How is it possible that the people who work hand in hand with the curriculum on a daily basis have little to no say of what gets put in it? I soon learned that what gets put into the curriculum isn't as important, nor is it set in stone. What is more important is how teachers use the outcomes and indicators to enhance their students' learning. Moving forward, I believe my main role in the classroom is to be a facilitator of the curriculum. This philosophy is inspired by John Dewey, who I talk about in my first paper. I want to approach curriculum with the philosophy of focusing on my students' previous experiences. I want to as well incorporate Maria Montessori's philosophy throughout my approach. She believed in inclusion throughout the classroom and to base our teaching on what the students are interested in. Both of these two philosophers are important to my approach to curriculum because I believe it allows my future students to gain a deeper understanding and appreciation for their own education. Throughout the semester, there was one time I really felt uncomfortable throughout lecture. It was when Claire Kruger, a guest speaker, had come in to talk to the class about treaty education throughout the classroom. This really made me feel uncomfortable because before going to university, I don't ever remember learning nor hearing about Indigenous people and its culture. Claire stated in her lecture, "Think of treaty education as an invitation, not just as a signed document." This stood out to me because as someone who lacks the prior knowledge about treaty education, I don't want to just think of it, nor do I want to teach my students that it's just a signed document. But instead, I want to use it as an invitation to enhance their learning and knowledge. But with doing so, I fear that because I lack the knowledge, I may offend or sugarcoat the topic of treaty education, as opposed to allowing it to speak for itself. Claire helped settle this fear by saying we must teach and not victimize the Indigenous people or its culture. I also learned throughout this course how important it is to utilize Indigenous resources, such as elders, to help teach about treaty education. This ECS class has really allowed me to grow as a future teacher. I have learned that I must reframe and challenge the idea of common sense that Kumashiro talks about in his article, Against Common Sense. I need to keep in mind that what might be common sense to me may not be for others, and that common sense is not universal and differs with place. With that being said, I must also remember that every student is unique and different in their own way. So as a teacher, I must move past this idea of a good student because it can only hinder the way in which I approach curriculum and the learning of other students. But I should instead focus on creating an equal, diverse, and inclusive classroom environment.